Hello and welcome, and in this video we're going to be talking about the introduction to matrices. Okay, so I'm just going to cover some really brief general topics when I'm talking about a matrix. Okay, so matrices is just a plural of a matrix. All right, so what I have here is two matrices. I have matrix A and I have matrix B. Okay, and all a matrix is a rectangular arrangement of like numbers and variables and stuff like that written inside of brackets. Okay, so this would be one matrix and this would be another matrix, matrix A and matrix B. Okay, now one of the really important things that we need to be able to do when we're talking about matrices is we need to be able to talk about or list the dimensions of a matrix. Okay, and what the dimensions of a matrix are is basically how many rows, horizontal rows, does the matrix have, and how many vertical columns does the matrix have. Okay, so for example here, matrix A has two horizontal rows. We have a row here of 2, -3, and x, and a second row of 11, y, and 32. Okay, so this has two rows. Okay, so this has two rows, and it has 3 vertical columns. Okay, so we have a column of 2 and 11, -3y, and x32. So it has 3 columns. Okay, now when we talk about the dimensions of a matrix, we normally list it out as the dimensions, which would be shown as this: 2 by 3. Okay, that's what this represents. This represents a matrix that has 2 rows and 3 columns. And the way we say this is that matrix A is a 2 by 3 matrix. Okay, so that would be the dimensions of matrix A. Whereas in B, the matrix of dimension, or excuse me, the dimensions of matrix B, well, notice this one has 4 horizontal rows and 2 vertical columns. So I would say the matrix, or excuse me, the dimensions, I cannot talk today. The dimensions of matrix B are 4 by 2. Okay, so that would be the dimensions of matrix A and matrix B. All right, so not too difficult. Just make sure it's always row by column. Rows always come first. So row by column. Okay, so make sure that was always row by column. All right, now another thing that we have to talk about with matrices is what's called the entries or elements of a matrix. Okay, so I see this 2 here, I see this 32, the 7, the 4, the 9. Okay, all of those are what we call an entry to the matrix. Okay, so everything inside of a matrix is what we call an entry. All right, and each entry in the matrix has what we call an address. Okay, just like you have an address for your home or wherever you live, each entry has its own special address. All right, so for example, and it's once again always by rows by columns. So the way that this looks is, for example, if I was talking about matrix A, say I wanted to list the address for the entry of 11. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in a little color here. So let's say I wanted to represent the address of entry 11. Okay, so the way I would do that is, this is matrix A, so I would use a lowercase a. We generally name matrices by an uppercase letter. Okay, so I'm going to use lowercase a, and then I'm going to use a little subscript, and this subscript is going to tell us which row is that entry in and which column that entry is in. Okay, so for this one, notice 11 is in the second row. So this would be the first row, this is the second row. So I put a little 2 as a little subscript. Okay, so that is the row number, and then now I have to list the column number. Notice is that is 11 is in column 1, so then I just put a 1 right here. So it's going to look like 21, but what that 21 subscript represents is that, hey, this is in row 2 and column 1. So I would say that A sub 21 is equal to 11. So that's how we write the address. Okay, I can do that as well for, say, X. Okay, well, notice that this would be the first row. It's up top, it's on the first row, and the third column. So the address for X would be A sub 13. Okay, and that just represents the first row and the third column. All right, I can also do this for B. So for example, let's say I wanted to know, hey, what is the address for this entry right here? Well, I would use a lowercase b, because now we're talking about matrix B here, and that is in row 4 and column 2. So B sub 42 is equal to 13, okay? And I can also kind of flip it a little bit. I can say, let's say I want to say what is the address? What is the address of the entry? The entry, let's say 10 in matrix B. Okay. So you're also going to have to not only be able to locate what the entry is based off of the addresses, you're going to have to also be able to give us what the address actually is. And my apologies, I didn't realize that I was writing where you can't really see, okay? But we want to know what the address of entry 10 in matrix B is. Well, that is located right here. So that would be lowercase b. It is in row 2 and column 1. So that would be it. Okay, guys? So that's just a really brief introduction to matrices and just some of the general terms that you need to know. You need to be able to list the dimensions of a matrix. You also need to be able to list the address of a matrix or locate an entry given a address of that element. Okay? So I hope this was helpful. In the next couple of videos, we're going to talk about matrix operations, so adding and subtracting matrices and multiplying matrices. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.